so much for the invitation to come. Thanks, Chris, for hunting me down. Sometimes you have to. And it's just so good. I was thinking yesterday about all the familiar faces I would see, and I'm going to get so many hugs today, so thank you so much. And I love, you're a tough crowd because of all the practices and things that you do, and so I always have a hard time sort of like, what do I want to talk about, because I want it to be resonant. And then when I come, and somehow I always land on choir days, which is so fantastic. And this theme that I've been hearing today is exactly what I want of presence, which is the heart. And how we show up in the world in our own hearts, and what we bring to the world when we do that. So it's just perfect leading with what you read today, Pat, and some of those joys and concerns, and the song that you just sang. So it's always so perfect, so thank you. We're all just connected in such a special way. As Pat mentioned, I'm involved with something called the Path of Self-Love School, and I had the opportunity to create that a few years ago, so 4 years now, based on my own self-love journey that started back in almost a decade ago. I found myself in a situation where I was grieving a marriage that didn't work. I was in a job that I didn't like. I was just sort of, I remember the night, I call it the fetal position on the couch moment, where I was just sort of, at a low point. And I knew I wanted to move forward in a different way. I couldn't keep recreating what I had created. And I have very audio intuition now that I understand myself a little bit better, but this voice said to me, Lee, this is about self-love. And those were two words, self-love, that I had never literally ever used before. And I did not know what that meant. It was this very clear direction. And being this, I have an academic background, and so being the analyst researcher that I am, I promptly went to the Google and I said, Lee, or I didn't say Lee, but I said, how do I get more self-love? The things that we type into Google. And knowing that the answer would be there, and sure enough it was, because thank you to the Google. I met a teacher that her life's work at the time was actually teaching people how to embody self-love, and I began to work with her. And what I understood started to, self-love is such a vague term, how do we do that? I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the practices and the tools that I started to embody in my life and the changes that I started to experience were so inspiring, and I was having so much healing that I really wanted to bring that work to others. I knew that for sure in my own heart, that I need to bring this to other people. And so through my own work and through the teacher that I was working with, we decided that we were going to create a platform to get actual, real, practical tools into the hands of people so that they could actually practice and embody self-love and understand what it really means as a journey. And we were very intentional in our mission, which is something we consider ourselves a social change organization. And we exist to create generational change. And we were really intentional about that because we wanted to serve as many people as we could, and we wanted the patterns and behaviors that we had shifted in our own hearts and that we had helped lots of individuals with not be passed down from generation to generation. And if we could break that cycle, we could really make a difference in this world. We really imagine a world, we still hold this true, where every being truly loves themselves, and imagining what that impact would have. And we've already presenced that here today, of how much love could be available if we're centered in our hearts. And, so why is self-love part of that path? And what we saw time and time again is that when a person embodies self-love, myself included, it's not only that you begin to experience more happiness and fulfillment in your life, but you root down into your purpose. And everybody, when they land on that purpose, is usually about bringing more love and compassion in the world in some way, shape, or form. And also, when people are experiencing their own self-love and they're feeling full of that, they have more love to give. And I say this every year, almost every day, and you all know this, is that love is needed now more than ever. I don't know about you guys, but it's a little crazy out there. It's a lot crazy out there. And being able to access that frequency of love allows us to actually respond to that versus react to that. and also contribute to making a difference, to shifting it. And so I go back to that question about what is self-love really, and what does it mean to actually embody self-love? And in its simplest terms, it's love directed at itself, right? But that's not always easy. Somebody presents that here in our joys and concerns about allowing the love in. It's easy. All of us are here of service, and it's easy to give love to others, but it's not so easy sometimes to receive that for ourselves. At Path Self-Love School, we say self-love is a path, a practice, and a choice. Because it really is a journey. You're never done. You never check off this box that says, like, I'm done now, as you all know, on your own journeys with different things. And it is a practice. There are actually things that we can do to practice strengthening our self-love. And it's a choice because we do have to choose to do it. And for me, it's choosing again and again and again and again. You know, it's getting lost sometimes and coming back to it, and getting lost and coming back to it. And it's something that we're in relationship with. And so for me, it's, you know, that's why I call this the journey through the heart, is that self-love is a matter of the heart. We've all been talking about the heart within us. And to get out of the mental mind. And so it's an embodied experience, it's felt. And the way I want to talk about it today is a metaphor that I just love to use, which is the metaphor of tree. And I've been working with a mantra for a while now, this like root down to rise up, root down to rise up. And if you imagine that as a beautiful tree, big, you know, most beautiful tree that you can imagine or that you've experienced or that you have this beautiful image, is imagining being so rooted in the earth and coming up through the trunk and up, branches up to the divine. Rooted up through the heart, up to the divine. Can you picture it? Self-love is a portal to the divine. And if we aren't rooted in the earth and in our own hearts and connected to the divine, we're more likely to make choices that are actually not in alignment with ourselves and with what's needed on the planet. And so, you know, I want you to really feel into the energy of being rooted down, centered in the heart, connected to the divine. You feel the energy? It's slow, it's still, it's centered. The tree isn't running around looking for answers. Right? The tree's not going to Google. The tree has the answers in here. And so by allowing ourselves to slow down and be still, we can go into the heart where the wisdom is. We search for answers here, the wisdom is here. And so for me, this theme of, you know, loving who we are is really understanding who you are and knowing who you are. To love what is, you have to know what is, and that takes courage, right? And at the root of courage, what's the root of the word courage? Heart, right? So going into the heart, and it's scary sometimes because everything is in there. And I had a great conversation with Mark this morning about, you know, being with what is. You know, there's light in there, there's dark in there, there's our dreams and our desires, and there's, you know, all this kind of stuff. And sometimes we're afraid to go in there and kind of take a look at it all. Afraid we might get stuck there. It might bring up emotion that we don't want to be with. But really, it's just going in and being okay with what is at any given moment. And so each year I choose a theme for my life, and this year I chose living with an open heart. And it's just something that I just like brings awareness to, you know, what I'm kind of focusing on this year. And the reason I chose that is that I was finding myself last year just feeling a little bit closed down, locked down. I could just feel, you know, some resentment and, you know, judgment and things that were swirling around, and that was a big indication to me that I was out of alignment somewhere. And rather than, you know, just sort of try to, you know, Google my way out of it, I slowed down and I allowed myself to be really curious And I asked myself, what keeps me from doing that now? And I, done so much work to open my heart and to heal and do all this stuff. And so I was like, what is happening? And it was easy to, want to put some judgment on myself. But I opened my heart to that question. And, the truth is we all come into this world with this beautiful, open heart. We show up, we're like, yay, we're here, and all this stuff. And then we start to have experiences. And our small selves, we don't know what to do with that. We can't make sense of it. And so we slowly start to just kind of like, the only thing I can do is this, right? The only thing I can do is just like, there's this hurt in the world, there's this experience that I'm having, and we can't make sense of it, and so we just start to close our heart down. And so, and it's just a self-protective mechanism. And so I needed to look and see what was happening to me that was having me do that. And what I found was this deep-seated pattern of a very non-self-loving action of what I have deemed the hole plugger. And so I actually have this superpower of being able to look around a room or be in a job or be in a situation and really like see what's needed, like where like there's a lack of something or something needs to be done. And it really is a superpower of mine if I'm operating from a healthy perspective in that. But I was in this completely distorted version of that, and I was plugging every hole in every part of my life. Where it was like, okay, at work, we're down a person, like I'll do that, taking on somebody else's role while I was doing my own role, that kind of thing. And it's so funny because one of the stories that I remember my grandfather telling me when I was little, and I don't remember the whole story, I'm sure some of you have heard of it, the little boy who put his hole in the dike to stop the leak. And like that's, and then like, what are you gonna do now? Right? You're like plugging the hole. And I was like this, I'm plugging the holes, And so, and that was a very distorted version of myself that loves to give and be receptive, responsive to things or whatever. And so, flash forward, and I was exhausted, I was tired, I was resentful, I was not feeling connected to spirit, I was not feeling connected to myself. And when I really looked at that, I started to look at my younger self and saw where helping out, being useful, got me a lot of attention, and what I thought at the time was love. I mean, I remember with my family, I remember being in the classroom, and teachers were like, oh, she's so helpful, and how those things can lead into the distortions that I found myself in, toward the end of last year. And so, like I said, it took a lot of self-compassion for me not to judge myself on all the work I've done, right? But through my self-love work and self-love, the way we teach it at the school, has many facets to it. This maybe you experienced that with me when I've taught here. But it's self-compassion, it's self-honesty, it's self-awareness, it's self-esteem, it's self-care. And so to really be able to have the tools to slow down and say, I'm not going to judge myself for this. I'm going to keep a big pile of self-compassion and love on this and be with this. And now I can be in relationship with it because I'm super aware of it. And I literally made a promise. I also take a self-love promise every year, and I'll share it with all of you. I peaked sore with a friend of mine, is that I, this year, give up the job of perennial hole plugger. What? Will you hold slate with me? And it's not going to be easy. It's something that I'm going to, I've been doing that for 40 some years, and so, it's not going to just go away because I said I'm going to give this up. I'm going to be in relationship with it though. And because I'm in awareness and relationship with it, it's okay. I will be able to slowly work to shift that. And I've already taken steps, and it's required me to do things like say no when people are used to me saying yes. So it's not easy, but it's something that I can be with. And slowly shift it. And the reason that I tell you this story is because sometimes loving who we are is really subtle like that. We're used to kind of the bigger things, like am I saying negative things to myself? Am I, the kind of things that show up when we think of sort of not loving ourselves. But it can be really subtle, and my example is an example of something that really is true to me, and something that I love about myself is that I'm a very giving person. But it crossed the line into over-giving. And my giving and my receiving was out of balance. And so that brings me back to the tree, because I often look to nature for wisdom. And I love the tree because, for so many reasons, but it also is a good example of a relatively closed system that is in pretty good balance with giving and receiving. If a tree receives sunlight, water, nutrients, carbon dioxide, it has this beautiful ability to give us oxygen, give us fruit, give us things to eat, and those things are very balanced. You know, photosynthesis is a chemical reaction that is completely balanced. But take away one of those things, and that tree is not going to be able to give, right? And so if we look at that self for ourselves, I want you to close your eyes for a minute and imagine that image of the beautiful tree, remember, rooted down, up through the trunk, and branches in the sky. And overlay that image with just a beautiful chalice. A beautiful cup that is filled with your own life force. We have a finite amount of energy, time, money. And the more full the cup is, and this is presence here today too, the more we can give without being depleted. We have a saying in our work that never serve from your reserves. Right? You wouldn't take your empty gas tank to your friend who was out of gas and try to transfer some gas over there, right? It's empty, like it doesn't work. And so the invitation here, and I'm going to teach you a practice because we said that the path of self-love, you know, self-love is a path of practice and a choice. So just keep your eyes closed here for a minute. And this is a really beautiful, short, quick practice that you can do on a daily basis. You can do it several times a day if you want. Of taking a moment and slowing down, taking a breath or two, maybe putting your hand on your heart. And if you imagine that beautiful chalice of yours, that tank, that container, if you will, of your life force, and if you had to rate yourself in this moment in time on a scale of 0 to 100, 100 being completely full, and 0 being completely empty, what number would you give yourself in this moment in time? My number right now is 77. I'm 3/4 the way full. And then from that place, you ask yourself a very simple question. What do I need to receive today? From the heart, you let that answer come up. For me, it's compassion. Pat, would you share yours?
Thanks.
Pat says thanks. Luann, would you share yours? Gratitude. Okay, just breathe into that. And then the invitation is that as you go about your day, you give that to yourself, or you notice when it shows up in your life. It's usually never some big, giant thing. Sometimes it is, but maybe sometimes it's a hug, or it is compassion, or it is gratitude, or it is sleep. That's a very simple self-love practice that can strengthen your ability to receive as well as your ability to give. Imagine if every person got what they needed every day. What would be possible? And so you can open your eyes now. I'm going to teach you one more thing before I wrap up here. And I keep saying about the self-love being an embodied experience, and you just experienced something where you were able to slow down, drop in, right? Connect with your own heart. And in a minute, I'm going to have Jason play a song that will wrap up my experience here with you. And it's going to root us and ground us in that ability to receive love for ourselves so that we can give it to the world. And the song is going to have a little chant that we do with it. It's a word that you all know, one word, and it's hallelujah. And the meaning of hallelujah really is an expression of rejoicing. And so what we're going to do is while we listen to it, we're going to keep our eyes closed. We're going to have, if you're able to, with your right hand on your heart, receiving love for yourself. Your left hand out, feeding love to the world. If you're unable to do this, you can just imagine that you're doing it too. It's totally fine. And we're just going to listen and say the words or sing the words quietly so that we can hear everybody's voices and hear the music while this is playing. So.
Wow. Thank you, Lee, for that meditation. That was very, very powerful. And it's always so wonderful to hear your words of wisdom. Well, I think it's time for another song. LeGrand, what are we going to be doing today?
It's in every one of us, in your songbook. Somebody tell me what page that's on. In alphabetical order. What page is that on?
20.